What's up, everybody? Super happy today. It's another beautiful day in God's country. If you guys could do me a huge favor, if you're watching this on YouTube, if you could hit the like button and the subscribe button, maybe even leave a comment. By doing that, it's going to get this into the algorithm more, this podcast, and then more people are going to be aware of the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of everything that's going to be taught in this podcast in the past, and podcast in the future. If you guys could do that, be a massive favor. Today we're kind of veer a little bit away from disabled hunting, but I'm going to talk about something I'm very, very passionate about. I don't know if you guys have heard what's going on in Southern California, down here on the coast of. We got an island off the coast called Catalina Island, and there's a conservancy over there, and they are trying to eradicate the deer. They're not trying to let hunters come in and hunt. They are literally want to fly people in helicopters, come and shoot the deer. And not only shoot the deer, but let the deer lay there and rot. People aren't going to get the meat. Hunters aren't going to get the meat. The homeless aren't going to get the meat. No one's getting the meat. But on the other line today, I have a good friend who's very passionate about it as well, who's got a lot of information about it, an incredibly accomplished hunter in the hunting world. And I'm very proud to have Matt Ward on the other line here. Matt, if you can introduce yourself and just let everybody know who you are, and let's talk Catalina, man. I'm really passionate about this.
Awesome, Derek. Really appreciate the invite to get on here and talk about Catalina, a little bit about myself. I came into hunting a little later in life, in my mid-20s, but in the last 25 years, I've gotten about all over the globe and, hunted just about every legally huntable species there is. And more than hunting, I've come to really appreciate what a massive role we as hunters play in the preservation of all of these animals and species around the globe. I mean, especially in places like Africa and Asia. Without people like us getting out there and putting value on these animals, they wouldn't exist. It's as simple as that. So I really appreciate the opportunity to, come on with you, talk about something that's happening very close to home for the both of us, where, the deer on Catalina have been approved to be eradicated by the Conservancy, when for the last 25, 30 years, they were very well managed by regulated hunting. And this has been pushed through by the Conservancy, approved by the state of California. There's a lawsuit in place, as you know, to prevent this from happening. But, just so your audience is clear, the permits have been approved. The eradication is supposed to begin here in the next couple of months. So I want to certainly do my part to, share what's going on over there. We put together a film about my time on Catalina, which I know you had a chance to watch, and,
Great video.
share with your audience. And that really establishes why, the deer have been such an important part of the landscape. They've been there for over 100 years since their introduction, and there's absolutely no need to eradicate them. Hunting can do a great job moving forward, managing them. So I'm looking forward to talking about that.
And the thing that bothers me, one of the things that bothers me the most about this entire situation is they are basing their entire numbers platform on like how many deer are on this island and how many are supposedly too many. They're claiming spotlight surveys, literally driving roads with spotlights. Oh, there's a pair of eyes. Oh, there's a pair of eyes, and counting it, and then extrapolating that into various areas. And I think they have the island broken down into, what is it, four or five sections, but they extrapolate that a small number. And they just say, oh, the entire island has that same amount of number of deer. And you guys just think about this. Driving roads with a spotlight and counting eyeballs. Is that a legit scientific way to count a number of animals that are in a certain area?
Derek, that's such a
Blows
great
my
point.
mind.
No, it's such a great point, and it's done intentionally to be self-serving. So it has been, from the hunting community, the people that are fighting this. We have drone technology. We have thermal technology. Okay, if you want to get an accurate count of the deer that are in, and I've been there. I've done 2 hunts there. I've spent time on Catalina Island. Those are massive, steep, nasty canyons. And what they're trying to do in the survey, exactly like you said, which is very unscientific, is use it to their benefit to say that there's a lot more deer than there is. And keep in mind, when I was there hunting last, which was about 4 years ago, the guide who was spending about roughly 6 months, okay, of his life on the island, mainly hunting, guiding hunters, he said at that time there was probably closer to 800 deer, and they were taking about 150 out to manage the population, because there's no doubt it is an island. The deer, like everywhere else, have to be managed. And he was estimating, just to throw a number at you, at 800 on the high end. Now, the Conservancy is saying with this very unscientific method, there are over 2,000 deer on the island. Of course, that number is very self-serving, because, the more deer, the more damage supposedly they're doing, et cetera, et cetera. So to your point, a great place to start would be to do a proper survey of how many animals are there. And of course, when the real number comes out, it's going to be a lot harder for the Conservancy to say that all these deer should be shot out, because the number is going to be less than half of what they've estimated in a very unscientific way.
Yeah. So, yeah, everybody, think about this. What sounds more scientifically feasible? Driving roads with spotlights, counting eyes, considering there's like Matt has said, there's some steep and deep canyons. You're not going to get it. And those spotlights, how far are these spotlights going to go? 50 yards if you're lucky. Or we have night vision, thermal drone technology that has been put forth by the Deer Recovery Program, and I think Deer Recovery Program is the one with the drones. But they were said they could get people in various sections of the mountain, and everyone can crush out a certain section. Think about that. Spotlights or night vision thermal drones. And the Conservancy over in Catalina was like, no, you're not bringing these drones out on our island. We refuse to let you use that, because if they do, their entire premise is going down the toilet, and they know it.
That without a doubt, man. I think it all starts and stops there, right? Because how can you manage? I mean, let's think about this. How can you manage a population effectively when you don't even know what the population is, right? Let's step away from the reality that most of the locals want the deer to be there. The deer are a tremendous attraction to the people that come to the island to visit, as the bison, who, by the way, are not on the docket to be eradicated. Think about, there's over 100 bison on the island. I would venture to say they do a lot more damage to the flora fauna than the deer do. But at the end of the day, this is being very selective. Now, I don't want to get into speculating what's in the Conservancy's head. My goal, as a avid hunter, and more importantly, an avid conservationist, is to make sure a deer herd that's been there for over 100 years continue to exist and do what has been proven, which is that using regulated hunting to manage them effectively. Listen, this is not about, wipe out the deer or not, manage them. The deer need to be managed. There's no question about that. And, once the proper surveys are done, you can even say the numbers that were taken out before is not enough. And, that plan might have to be adjusted to take out more deer. I'm open to all of that. And one of the things that really stayed with me was when I just got into hunting, Derek, the Santa Rosa Island, which is also off the coast of Ventura County, had a herd of almost 2,000 animals. Half of them were elk, half of them were mule deer. It was the Roosevelt elk went on the island. It was run by a hunting company. and they were taking a certain amount of the elk out, certain amount of the mule deer, highly successful, had a wonderful population. The island was roughly the same size as Catalina, 55,000 plus or minus acres, and the majestic nature of seeing all those animals on the ridge lines and all over the place was so spectacular. And hunting was doing a fantastic job of managing the population. But then they found some plant, which by the way exists on all of the Channel Islands, and used that as an excuse exactly to basically helicopter shoot and let lay all the animals that existed on the island. And that was a herd of over 2,000 elk and mule deer. So that always stayed with me. I mean, they put that together pretty fast. The state of California doesn't move quickly on much, but man, when it comes to wiping out, game species, exactly, they operate pretty quickly. So that, went down fast. And, one of my biggest regrets in hunting, I mean, I've hunted in 60 different countries and, over 300 species. And I really wanted to go back to Santa Rosa Island. And I thought, you know what, it's always going to be there. It's in my backyard. I'll have the ability to experience that magic again. And within 2-3 years, it was done. And I feel like Catalina is going down the same path. And, there's a lot more people, from the locals to hunting groups, people like you, me, that are really trying to spread the word on Catalina. And while the legal route is critically important, I think also the route of making sure there's a lot of people that support the deer continuing to exist, I believe is, if you will, the Hearts and Minds campaign is just as important. So that whole Santa Rosa experience has always stayed with me, and I think we must do our part to fight this.
One thing I would say that we have in our arsenal this time to protect Catalina is social media, compared to the time of Santa Rosa was before social media really
Well
blew
said.
up and did its thing. And so I'll give you guys. I'm gonna throw out some numbers. So the Catalina Island Conservancy is basically the entity that runs all things Catalina, and they're estimating by spotlights 2,000 mule deer on a 50,000 acre island. Now, there's there's been talks. Obviously, Howl, the company Howl, HOWL, did a great
Great
job.
job.
Did a great video on watching this. You guys really need to watch it. It's called Killing Catalina on YouTube. They interview the conservancy. They interview the scientists behind it. They interview the hunting outfitters. They interview the who's who of the who's who's to get numbers and to really get a foundation of what's going on. But the like you said, the outfitters who are on that island in the field 6 months out of the year are claiming less than half of 2,000. I've like you said, I've heard the number anywhere from seven to 900 deer, 900 on a very rainy, blessed blessed season of fawn patrol. That's where the population will get. But we're in Southern California. We're Mediterranean climate. It's very dry, and so yeah, the people who are actually in the field doing the grinding, doing the work, having eyes on, are saying not only is that number off, the Island Conservancy's numbers off, it's completely BS, completely fabricated, and just it sounds familiar. It sounds governmental to me. But so and then another thing too is the reason they're claiming to get rid of our deer on Catalina is the fauna. There's a certain fauna that only grows on Catalina, and just so happen these mule deer love this certain plant, and the deer have to go. It just, to me, it sounds BS, but at the same time too, And if you watch the video on Howell's video, Killing Catalina, the conservancy's the head of the conservancy, her stance on this certain fauna, this certain plant, is that if a fire were to start, because we're in a Mediterranean climate, it's very dry, wildfires start. I'm sure everyone knows that about California, but that the shrub brush goes up in seconds, but this special plant won't burn as quick. Won't burn as quick. It'll burn in 3 minutes or some. That's a random number right there, but it was just ridiculous. And then they cut to the in the movie, they cut to the outfitter, and it's or no the they've interviewed the LA fire superintendent, right? And he was saying that that's complete rubbish. Like those plants, no matter, there's no fire retardant plant on that island.
Well,
And
I mean, honestly, Derek, he said the
the
complete opposite in a hearing relative to what the conservancy was saying, while they're using it as a
right,
fire risk in terms of what the deer are doing. The fire chief said the complete opposite. He said the deer actually, by eating down the brush, helps prevent massive wildfires on Catalina. So, just want to make that point very clear because he is, on record. This is not something he said, off record, but he's on record as saying
yep,
that the deer have consistently helped Catalina Island, with the browsing they do. And listen, at the end of the day, you can turn anything, to your benefit if it becomes self-serving. But I think it's really a little bit bigger than the conservancy and whatever the self-motivated interests are to wipe out the deer. These deer were introduced, and to me this is important, right? Over 100 years ago, right? The deer didn't have a choice when they were introduced there. And, this is not an experiment that's lasted 10 or 15 or 20 years even, or even a quarter of a century. The deer and the island have coexisted, and the people that live there, for over 100 years, right? It's worked. There hasn't been any issues. There hasn't been any major fires because of the deer, and we can go on and on. Now, I would think the people that live on the island who are unanimously in support of keeping the deer there, you'd think they'd know, a little bit more than, for example, people, that are making decisions that are off island, relative to this. So when you have the locals that live on the island, the fact that the deer have, walked those ridge lines and lived in those canyons for over 100 years, and there's never been a problem. The word the Conservancy uses is restoration. So they're making this a choice between the future of the island and, the deer. And the honest truth is both have coexisted pretty damn well for the last 100 years and can for the next 100. So I don't want to get into what the self-serving interests are, people planting vineyards and this, that, to me, that's all, that's all noise. But the honest truth is the deer have been there. They have not been a detriment to the island in any way. The fire chief of Los Angeles County have said, if anything, they're helping. It would be a mistake, he said, to take the deer out from grazing the island. And we can debate after, as you very correctly pointed out, there's no starting point if you don't know exactly how many deer are on the island, right? You got to do an accurate count first using
yeah, that's
the top of the
that's the foundation of the whole premise.
absolutely top of the line technology. And I think the number that you and I discussed, whether it's 700 to 900, the truth is going to be somewhere in that metric. Now, all of a sudden, you're having a very different conversation than 2,000 plus deer, which is what the Conservancy has put out there. But I think, without a doubt, we're not asking to do something that has not been done effectively. Hunting has controlled the deer very well, and I think can be used as the most important tool moving forward as well.
And I don't know if it was last year or the year before that, they even bumped up the number of tags hunters were allowed to come in on the island and effectively hunt. And I think it was an extra 1,000 tags were permitted, and about 700 of those tags were. Forgive me if I'm butchering the numbers a little bit, but about 600 to 700 people actually hunted those tags, and out of those 700, I think a third or something maybe harvested. I don't know. Please forgive me on those numbers, but because I just watched
Yeah, I think
the
you're
episode,
right
but
around the correct number, but please keep in mind they issued those tags after the decision was pretty much made to wipe out the deer. I don't particularly believe that that was a very thoughtful, and effective thing to do to manage the deer herd. That was just, putting a bunch of people on the island who, again, there's a lot of safety risk related to that, if that makes sense. I'm not saying that there cannot be a lottery system or, in combination with an outfitter to go on the island and harvest the deer. But my premise is come up with an accurate number of what can be sustainable. If it was 150 deer, I'm just throwing out a number that was taken out before, maybe the
right,
number now is 200, okay, or 250. That's fine, and figure out a good plan on how that amount of deer gets taken out. But to, have, thousands of tags issued and have a bunch of people come on the island, and shoot, at will. Management involves taking the older deer, taking, certain subset of the female population. When you just issue
right.
tags at random, to be very honest, that's not management. That's basically a different way to try and get the extermination of all the deer. So I think, there are multiple layers to this. First, you can't put a plan together till you have an accurate count. Once an accurate count is done, you figure out, obviously using the scientists and all the folks that know that stuff better than you and I, what amount of deer need to be taken out, and then you assign a certain amount of buck tags, a certain amount of doe tags, and then you effectively go about maintaining that number. But my hope is, while the legal process has is working on preventing it from happening for now. Really, I think people's voices, exactly like you said, whether it be social media, videos, like Save Catalina's Deer, the video I put together, Killing Catalina, educate yourself to what's really happening. And I'd love to see some of the, anti-hunting organizations that are, espousing, obviously, we need to keep the animals out there, jumping on board here and helping the cause here as well. Because I think it's going
Right.
to take a collective effort. I think it's not just the hunting community, but all the different communities that believe that the deer should exist that, will play a role.
Yeah, that's huge. There's been a lot of, the Humane
Hmm.
Society has even partnered with a lot of these hunting organizations saying this is, it's inhumane, it's there's no scientific basis to this entire premise and into the operation. And like this is one of the very rare times where the Humane Society and the Hunting Society, that side and our side are usually butt heads and polar opposite. Our whole, we're basically holding hands and being like, "Hey, this isn't a joke." Like I don't know why PETA hasn't hopped on this yet. But
This is an obvious one.
this
It's so obvious.
lately, they're talking about the mass extermination of an entire population of animals, and if that doesn't make your heart boil or make your blood boil, no matter what side of the spectrum you're on, are you really standing by your belief system? It man, I'm starting to rant. I think we
Well,
should
no, I mean,
we should probably get back into
that's
numbers
that's what
here.
it's going to take, Derek. I think it's going to take passion from a lot of people. Whether it be me, you, and Howl.org has done a fantastic job. Lots of individuals that know the Catalina story. that have done a great job. There's a lot of locals. I mean, we don't talk about the fact that there's a local population of Catalina residents that live there year round. They're playing a vital role. They've done fundraisers, to raise money for the legal stuff going on, for the petitions that are being signed, local restaurants donating, their resources to try and raise money, Coalition for Catalina Deer. This is really, has become a grassroots, campaign at a lot of different levels. But I also want to highlight, when push came to shove, and Howl.org has done a fantastic job. But SCI, the number one, a hunting organization, conservation organization on the planet,
Safari Club.
Safari Club International, which I'm a proud lifetime member of, really stepped up to the plate on the legal challenge to what's going on here. So I want to definitely highlight, and might be a little self-serving, but I feel like Safari Club International speaks for hunters' rights, more than anybody else, and they put their money where their mouth is, and they have gotten knee deep involved in the litigation to fight this. So yeah, everybody is really joining the party, and you're absolutely right. We have to highlight, while I might not see eye to eye on everything the Humane Society is espousing, on this one, we're all together, and that's exactly the kind of partnerships that we need to see to prevent this. I mean, we can talk about this till we're blue in the face, but if we're going to affect change, it'll take all of us.
No, and I'm sure everybody listening to this podcast knows and realizes that feelings, emotion, and passion are very, very critical in today's modern world. I mean, you see it on the news over whatever, if you can get the hearts and minds of people behind something, then they're going to have a very hard time accomplishing this eradication plan. When it hits them, actually is going to hit them in the pockets, then we're talking a different ball game here, and just a lot of people, or I'm sorry, I'm going off into the tangent here, but we need to get more minds and hearts behind this. Even if you're not, let's say you're in New York, Washington, Florida, Idaho, you're nowhere near California. If you don't think this can't happen in your area when it's happening over here, God knows they're going to do whenever they can, whenever they want. So we all got to step up. We got to fight. We got to fight, you guys. This isn't a island or California. California's got a bad rap for whatever our government does in California, but it's not about that, dude. It's about our rights as hunters and the ability to have proper conservation management, all this stuff put together to keep, just to keep the world in function.
100%.
Like if you take out one sect of a food chain, you're only strong as your weakest link. And if you start taking out entire links of food chains, entire ecosystems collapse.
Without a doubt. And the one thing that, a lot of people don't talk about, Derek, is we're not, we're going away from management here to a complete eradication of the herd, right? So once this decision is made and all these deer get shot out, there's no bringing them back. And that's something that I don't think everybody really thinks through, relative to this situation here. There's no, oops, we made a mistake, we should have done things differently, etc. It is a permanent decision. And when permanent decisions are made, I think you owe everybody involved at least some hearings, some public disclosure, no behind the scenes, ratcheting and getting eradication permits from the state of California, if that makes sense. I mean, if this was to wipe out half the population or whatever the case may be, I certainly wouldn't be for it, because I don't think the numbers support that. but at least you're not wiping everything out and it's permanent. This is a permanent decision they've made without doing a proper count of how many deer are on the island. There has been no public hearings, none, relative to this topic. And, even the LA County supervisors, like Janice Khan, who have spoken out, in regards to this, they want to have public hearings. I think LA County has also filed a lawsuit to stop the Conservancy, from following through on this plan. So definitely, I think the momentum is starting to build to what you and I are speaking about, where this just doesn't make any sense, man. At every level, just does not make any sense. And that's why I think people are really, the more people that know about this, the better off we are. And we really, appreciate you putting out a podcast in relationship to this.
Another thing that really, really bothers me about this entire situation is people know how slow government works.
Yes.
How processes in the government goes very, very slow. Months, sometimes years. They got this plan approved in days. Like,
very correct.
I don't want to be like, yeah, it's getting in the conspiracy area. I mean, I get to that on the blue in the face too, but it's days. Like, you get this entire process. Come on.
Yeah,
dude.
The speed of what this happened.
You're scared of something and you're trying to bypass something.
Yeah, no, I'm not a conspiracy theory guy, but I got to be honest with you. I think you're onto something. Something like this does not happen in the normal course of business. And of course, there are smaller states that can maybe more effectively, get things passed a lot sooner. But the state of California is not renowned for, rapidly getting anything done. So the fact that this happened behind the scenes so fast leads me to believe that there's, other interests at play and some behind the scenes activity. But at the end of the day, if we all speak, out against it, I'm firmly of the belief that the legal, fight is going to be what it is. But I think what's going to be just as effective, if not more effective, and I think I mentioned this to you before, is getting as many people to, voice their displeasure and concern that this should, at a minimum, be talked about in public hearings, and to really bring everybody involved to really understand the issues before a final decision is made.
Absolutely. And if you don't mind, I just typed in Catalina Island deer eradication lawsuit into Google, and I'm just going to read a little bit what Google says here. So you guys kind of have a foundation of what the lawsuit's all about. So it's a coalition of hunting and conservation groups filed a lawsuit in March 2026 to stop Catalina Island Conservancy from eradicating the island's 2,000 mule deer. The suit claims CDFW violated, that's California Department of Fish and Wildlife, violated the California Environmental Quality Act by bypassing the environmental reviews and public input, urging a halt to the $3 to $5 million plan. The key aspects of the lawsuit and controversy. The plaintiffs include Safari Club International, California Rifle and Pistol Association, California Bowmen Hunters State Archery Association, Howl for Wildlife, California Deer Association, and the Coalition to Save California Island Deer. The legal arguments are: the suit argues that the restoration management plan put forward by the Conservancy is a cover for full eradication and violates the CEQA by bypassing a thorough environmental impact review. That's what me and Matt were talking about, why they're pushing this through so fast. And the opposing, so that this is the side that the Conservancy claims. They introduced the mule deer are destroying native ecosystems and certain fauna and increase wildfire risk, requiring total eradication of the species. Opponents say this is inhumane and the native habitat issues are overstated, suggesting alternative management strategies such as contraception or controlled hunting. The community reaction, the Avalon City Council and the LA County Supervisors oppose the plan put forth by the Conservancy, supporting local efforts to save the deer which have inhabited the island for over a century. The lawsuit is pending in LA County Superior Court. The proposed plan involves professional sharpshooters killing the deer over a 5-year window. So that's just the basic overview of a quick Catalina deer lawsuit. That's what I typed into Google, but it's too fast. It's not non-scientific, and literally everybody, if you watch Matt's video he posted, I recommend, this is my recommendation. Watch Matt Ward's video he posted yesterday on YouTube, correct? It was yesterday or the day before. What's your profile name on YouTube?
It's a Hunter's Quest, and a Hunter's Quest is the YouTube channel, and that's also my social media moniker. And the video is Save Catalina's Deer, Stop Eradication. I wanted to keep the title really simple so people know what the video is about and what's at stake. And I think there are, and you had mentioned also killing Catalina. There is a hunter's perspective, Derek, with my video, which I think you'd agree lays out the case as to how the deer got there, why it's not necessary, and how hunting can be used, and give that perspective. And for people that want a more in-depth analysis of, obviously, more details, killing Catalina, I think, exactly like you said, covers those aspects very, very well. When I put my video together, my primary goal was to give my perspective. I think it was a perspective based on, the amount of hunting I've done globally, what a resource Catalina is, the fact that I was able to go there and, enjoy the magic of Catalina and the mule deer, and to really share, my profound belief that, conservation is not eradication. You know what I'm saying? And that's where, the angle I came at it from. But, it's only 10, 11 minutes long. I think, it gives people a great overview. I hope you agree with that. And then, of course, killing Catalina does a really good job of laying out, talking to scientists, and it goes a lot more in depth into the issues. A different format, but I think both videos accomplish something really important.
Absolutely. But yeah, like I was saying, they're both must watches. And the thing I like about Matt's video is the drone work. There's a lot of drone video in his video, which gives everybody a more mental picture of what the island looks like, of the steep canyons, the deep ravines, how close it is to the ocean, all that stuff. It really shows the human side to just how beautiful and how we want to keep this island as it is. And it's absolutely perfect. And these, like you were saying, the locals to the island are also very opposed to the eradication of the deer. And if anybody's going to know, it's going to be the people who are there every single day of their lives.
I really appreciate you highlighting the drone work and showing, my goal was to show most people visit Avalon, which is, the main kind of little hub there. They go in for the day, pop out. But there is so much more to Catalina. You take some of the backcountry tours into the canyons to see some of the wild country, Derek. The deer are the centerpiece, of those excursions. Obviously the bison as well, but that's what, makes Catalina, parts of Catalina wild, to have those deer there, grazing in the canyons and in the ridge lines. And exactly like you said, to see the magic of, the fact that it is an island. It's a really special place, man. And that's the thing that, really remains with me to this day. I remember going, and again, this is coming from somebody that literally has hunted everything all over the planet. There's certain places that stay with you. Santa Rosa Island, for example, seeing those elk, seeing those big mule deer, thriving, doing well, no natural predators. Absolutely, the population had to be controlled, and they were through hunting. To have all those animals wiped out for nothing, and to be having the same conversation really 15 years later, you know what I'm saying, when it comes to Catalina, the experience and the island will be lesser, in my humble opinion, for not having the deer there.
Yeah, it's infuriating. The more you get into it, the more you deep dive and get the details. It is absolutely infuriating to see the. I don't want to say the 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 money behind it, the backstory, but it is something that you know I think people should have in their mindset while they're looking at it. Like we said, the movie Killing Catalina by Howell goes into very detail about names, money, all the court systems, all kinds of stuff that you guys really need to watch. But it I'm having a hard time getting what I want to get out. It's it's not the way there's it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make
It
sense.
doesn't
And
make
you
sense.
earlier had made a really good point that I want to tie into Catalina, and for people that are not just in California but other states. If you follow Howell, there are issues in Colorado, Washington, Oregon. You go down the list. You know what I'm saying? Hunting and conservation is really under attack by in so many different ways. I mean,
Oh
this is,
yeah.
to me, this is a very obvious, right and wrong scenario. Some of the other ones are a little bit more complicated, a little bit more nuanced. But once you kind of give up on one, it's kind of easy to give up on the other. So I think this is not exactly, like you had mentioned, a California centric issue. I think people from around the country, can take something from this, because you're absolutely right. If it happens in California, it doesn't mean it can't happen somewhere else. I think people get emboldened to take these, nonsensical actions, without any impunity, once they are able to get away with situations like that. And that's why, you need organizations like Safari Club and howl.org, and all of these conservation related hunting clubs that exist. There are a lot of them that are fighting the good fight, and it's great to see all of us starting to rally to the cause here. But for me, the time is now. I have to highlight, while there's a legal process in motion that I hope is very effective. This is not, one of those scenarios that will happen in 2 years. As soon as the pressure stops, this is going to, they're going to eradicate the deer. So that's why I timed the release of my video, and it took a lot for me to put it together, because I had not done multiple hunts with videographers, etc. But I felt really moved to work with what I had to really highlight what's at stake here. And the moment is now for all of our voices to be heard. So I feel like your podcast, and I'm going to be on several others, talking about this particular issue, in addition to other things, is very time sensitive and really well timed.
So let's say that people have heard our information from this podcast, have read about it. How can they go and fight against it? Hearing and listening is one thing, but putting things into action is a whole nother thing. How can we get our how can we get in the
That's a
fight, dude?
great question. So in my description on my video, I linked the ability for people to donate to the massive amount of litigation that is going to be ensuing to prevent this from happening. Also, how they can get involved in doing the count of the deer through drone technology. There are petitions in place to, put your name in line with those that are against it. So there are multiple different things that can be done. I put the links in my video. Howl.org is at the center, of this whole, fight. And, they have lots of ways on their site how people can participate and make their voices heard. But I think, one of the most powerful things that you could do is share the message on social media, because the more people that have an awareness, and the more people that speak about it, sharing my video, Save Catalina's Deer, sharing Killing Catalina, bringing awareness to what's going on and making their voices heard. I think that's just as important as signing a petition or donating to obviously the legal fight, donating obviously to the drone count. There's a variety of actions people can take, but I think the most important thing people can do is using platforms like social media, like what you're doing, and using your base to spread the word and share why this just does not make any sense, because that pressure is going to get felt. They felt the legal pressure, right? There's in I think 2 or 3 weeks, they're doing a protest march in Avalon. The locals are organizing a march. I think the Coalition for the Deer of Catalina are putting that together. So there are things happening, and the more you get involved, the more things you can participate in to really fight this thing.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, this isn't just a Catalina Island thing. Like, just because it happens here doesn't mean it can't happen where you're living. I mean, they had something in Northern California too, where they shut down entire ecosystems to fishing and stuff like that because of a very small, tiny phytoplankton that only lives in this certain lake, and they're gonna find a way to bring the fight to your front door.
Absolutely.
It's we're at war. There's a very strong, powerful coalition of people with a lot of money who don't want hunting and fishing on people's options to survive and to feed. And it's very real. It is very real, and I hate myself for taking this long to get my butt in the game. But once you're got your foot in the door, it's and you start really looking into what's going on. This isn't just a Catalina Island fight. There's lawsuits going on all over North America, all over the United States, to eradicate this type of fishing, this type of hunting, hound hunting, duck hunting, whatever. Yeah, there's so. You guys, I love you guys. If you're listening to this podcast, first and foremost, thank you so much for chiming in. But we really need to stick together here and fight. Our way of life and our fun and our traditions that our ancestors have passed down for thousands of years is under serious threat right now. It is a real thing.
Well, listen,
you can look and you can be like, oh, that's something off in the distance. It's not personally harming me. It's like, no, dude, it's right here. It's at your front door. You just don't know it yet.
Going to touch all of us, and you said better be in the fight, late than not in the fight at all. I think this is a pivotal moment, Derek. I think we can all say, and listen, I've had the conversation you've had about Catalina. This has been going on for a year. It's all come to a head, obviously, in the last 60 days. But, how did I not know about this? We all are on to the next thing and the next thing. And this has been, brewing over the last year. And then exactly like you said, in warp speed, we're all sitting here thinking there's time, there's discussions, there's this, there's that. All of a sudden, there are eradication permits approved, and they're, lining up sharpshooters to shoot all the deer. So just like that, the switch goes on. But there are a lot of great people in this fight, and that includes you now. I'm hoping that more and more people will see what I put together, share it on social media, and really get involved with howl.org who's doing some great work on behalf of the Catalina deer. And it's a fascinating coalition that's building here. And you alluded to it. We have lawmakers like Janice Khan. We have the fire chief speaking out. We have groups that are pretty anti-hunting getting involved in this because they feel like, hey, using hunting as a tool to manage the deer is far better than seeing all the deer wiped out. Who knows? Catalina might highlight the kind of coalitions that need to be built, to save what we love and preserve it for the future. I mean, I think I have two young daughters, and one's 12, one's 15, and I think about, going to Catalina with them, at some point in the foreseeable future. It was never in my mind's eye that they would never see a deer there, right? And have the experience. And they're both, not hunters, and I don't think are going to be hunters, but man, they love wildlife like their dad does. And I would want them to be able to share that experience with me here in the near future. And I would want them to be able to take their kids. Who knows? One of their kids, might be a hunter, or not, and have that experience. And that's what will not exist if we do not fight the good fight and prevent this from happening. If that makes sense. That's the thought process that really got me very motivated, not only to speak out on social media, but to make a film to really highlight what's at stake, moving forward.
If you guys have social media on Instagram, look up Matt's account. It's called A Hunter's Quest.
Yes.
Right? At A Hunter's Quest.
A Hunter's
That's
Quest.
it for
correct.
Instagram. A Hunter's Quest on Instagram. Also YouTube, A Hunter's Quest. And then go to the video. The name of the video,
Save
Matt,
Catalina's deer.
A Hunter's Quest, Save Catalina's deer. Just get that as a good foundation, and then hop over to Howl, or just type in "killing Catalina," and the video comes up usually at the top selection, and you guys will get a very solid foundation and a lot of the information. And we got to stick together, guys. We got to do this, and I appreciate everything, Matt, you're doing for this. We both have accolades, but before we get going here, you have traveled all over the world, man, and you've shot some amazing critters, dude. I'm super excited, and I'm super proud of you for the work you've done and the memories that you've created for yourself. Would you be able to just possibly give us a couple, because this is a disabilities hunters related podcast, maybe a couple hunts you have out there? Let's stick to North America maybe, and then just something disabled hunters can get into and have fun at.
Derek, it's funny. I gave this some thought after our initial discussion when we talked about doing a podcast, and I want to, before I get into that, I think it is so inspirational. The reason, I've done a lot of podcasts and a lot of talks about, my journey and my accomplishments and this, that, and the other. But what I was really excited about getting on this podcast is what you're doing, as a disabled hunter, spreading the word on how, there can be no limitations if you want to go out and, get things done, and how hunting has brought so much into your life as a disabled hunter. So really proud of the work that you're doing, and highlighting for people that are wheelchair bound, that don't set any limits, because I'm out there making stuff happen, man. There's nothing more powerful than that. Somebody like me, we take a lot for granted. We get to do things without having to think about certain things, and it shows a passion at a completely different level when somebody like you makes the effort to go on a hunt. So at the end of the day, I want to really thank you for the work that you're doing, and talking to people to motivate them to go out and use the outdoors, and hunting as a great motivational tool, and way to enjoy and explore nature. But there are two hunts that really came to mind. And, if a guy, is a proficient shooter, and it gives somebody, the opportunity to work on that, I think antelope in, places like New Mexico, Colorado, and that's a hunt that I've done, quite a bit. You're covering ground, right? Where
Mm-hmm.
there is a distance issue, relative to, where the animal is, where you can cover ground, and then, if somebody can proficiently get set up and shoot, say 250 to 400 yards, I think an antelope is a very, exciting. It's a hunt that, I've done a bunch of times, and I always get, really motivated to go do that hunt. So I think that's one hunt that I was thinking about that I think would be, I don't want to say a no-brainer, but certainly something logistically that can be put together. And then, being out in the
Mm-hmm.
plains of New Mexico, Derek, I mean, that's one of my favorite places to hunt. And just getting out in the state, and exploring Colorado, etc. I think, antelope are in some beautiful country. So I think from a lot of levels, that would be a great hunt to think about. And I also feel that black bear, a spring hunt for bear where you can be, in a blind, in a baited situation, that also brings, a tremendous level of excitement and fun. Something that I do. I'm not the most patient guy in the world. I gotta put that out there. I'm more of a spot and stop kind of guy. But you hunt big bears by being patient. And I think some baited hunts for an animal like a bear can definitely be something that is very doable. Having said that, I was fortunate to take the last of all of the different whitetail species in North America, and it brought and I did a stand hunt. Everything that I do is 100% free range, but a stand hunt for whitetail was very, very effective. And that's where also, if somebody wants to, take a bigger deer, clearly something that's very doable. And then, something that I'm going to be doing in a couple of weeks in filming, turkeys. I mean, and then you and I, talked about that briefly, calling them in, getting set up in advance. I mean, I have to say, when you asked me to think about, some hunts disabled hunters can do, and put together, initially I was like, wait a minute, I'm going to have to do a lot of thinking on this. And then I realized there's quite a few hunts out there that with some effort, with the right outfitter, it's very doable. And exactly. So yeah, I
The
mean,
right
we
mindset
could
too.
probably spend an hour talking about different hunts now that I really think about it. But those are the ones that came to mind in North America, and I'm sure you have some others also that you've done that fits into that same class.
Yeah, I've hunted black
Hmm.
bear or baited out in Maine. Great harvested a very tasty deer. I've gotten two antelope, pronghorn, sitting on
Okay.
water. Because there's a lot of I got them both with my
Mm.
bow, archery, and yeah, pronghorn hunting isn't on my out of all the North American big game animals, like excluding like I haven't had sheep, I haven't had a lot of some of those animals, but the meat that I have
Hmm.
had, I would say pronghorn or antelope is my favorite so far. I put it over elk. I mean, although some elk tenderloins fresh in the field are whoo wee, but I love pronghorn. I absolutely love it.
Well, I'll say,
Very
talking
tasty.
about meat, my favorite game meat is axis deer. The chital, the spotted deer. Obviously, they're an introduced
Mm-hmm.
species, but there's a lot in Texas where you can hunt them free range. But Hawaii has a bunch of
Yeah.
axis deer, and that meat is absolutely fantastic, and no question that that's a hunt that can be set up either in a spot and stock fashion or in a blind scenario where the deer have to move through certain windows, to you. So that's also an animal, again, an introduced species, but one that I absolutely, feel can be done. And I'm sure, talking about the different game animals of North America, bison, if we're talking about meat and a lot of it,
Yeah. Oh
bison
yeah.
hunts, can be done, in some of these states on these big ranches where, it can be put together pretty effectively. So yeah, the more I think about it, man, there are
Almost all of
there's
them.
some limitations, but there's a lot of game animals, somebody with disabilities can pursue. I'm not saying that, better than me what the logistics involved are, but it is absolutely doable.
Yeah. You guys, if you have the right mindset and you're up for an adventure, you can do anything you want, all things. You can do all things.
Absolutely.
But Matt, thank you so much for coming on. But before we split ways, if you guys have been listening to this podcast, I always, this is separate from Matt. This is just a T8 Outdoors podcast, and you guys know I lift up a quick word of prayer. I just pray over the animals, pray over everything. So I'm just gonna lift up a quick prayer before we go, and we'll split up. Father God, thank you so much for the blessings you've given us, Lord. Thank you for the guidance. Thank you for the creation and the animals and the critters, and thank you so much for just giving us this opportunity. But Lord, you also gave us a voice to be heard. Help us to use this voice. There's a major fight going on in the battle for creation, and I just pray that your name would be glorified in all that we do. Use us, Lord God. Bless Matt and his adventures and his fight for what's right, Lord God, and bless this podcast. Let the right people, Lord, who need to hear this and see this, hear it and see it. I pray all these things in your Son Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Matthew, thank you so much for coming on, brother. I could sit here all day and talk. We could probably have you on and just talk hunting stories. We'll go for hours on end on that. But thank you so much. I hope you be safe, man, and congratulations on your recent board.
Well, listen, my friend, it was my honor to be on with you, and thank you for having me on and sharing what's going on in Catalina. And it was an absolute pleasure to be on with you.
Thanks, buddy. Have a great day.
Bye.